Before you can play a game of Dungeons and Dragons, you need to create a character. But that can be quite a daunting prospect once you start looking through the pages of the player's handbook and looking at all the things you need to fill out on your character sheet. But the good news is this: the first thing you actually need to do is close up the player's handbook, put down the character sheet, and move them out the way. Because all of that information is how you're going to play the game. It's your subclass, it's your attributes, it's your hit points, it's your movement speed, it's your spells, it's your equipment, and it's all the stuff that's going to impact your dice rolls. But it's not why you're going to play the game, and that is the first step. And we're going to go through that together really quickly right now. The first thing I advise you to do is have a think about who you want your character to be as an outline. And I recommend, if you're new to this process, that you just take an idea from popular media, which is a fancy way of me saying, if you like a character from a TV series or a film or a book, use them as inspiration. If you like Gimli, then you can play a gritty dwarven fighter. If you like Aragorn, you can play a down-to-earth ranger. If you like Geralt of Rivia, the same thing applies. Use them as inspiration, use them as a starting point, because whilst it's a good idea or a nice idea that we can create these characters completely from scratch, it's asking a lot. But the key thing is this: use them as an outline so that we can fill in the details. Don't just import them and put them in your game and play as them. Because whilst it's fun in the first session to turn up as Bimli, son of Bloin, the jokes and the novelty is going to wear off very, very quickly. But let's stick with the idea that you love Gimli and we're going to use him as inspiration. You are going to play a dwarven fighter, you're probably going to show up with an axe, you probably want some heavy armor, and so that's our initial character concept done. The next step is to come up with a bit of motivation. Because people who tend to lead happy, healthy, content lives don't want to go on quests to slay dragons and rescue princesses, or slay princesses and rescue dragons. So come up with a simple motivation, a reason for them to be bothering to do this in the first place. Maybe a friend or family member has gone missing, and so they've left home, they've left the safety of where they live to go and find them. Maybe they're on a mission of exploration and knowledge, and they're looking to learn new skills and visit new places. Maybe they're out for revenge. Maybe they just want to earn or need to earn loads of loot. Whatever it is, you are going to have a far more entertaining and interesting time playing this game if your character has a simple motivation, a simple reason for doing this whole thing in the first place. The next step is to think of one or two things that they are good at and one or two things they aren't so great at. It's really tempting to build this strong, powerful character in our minds who is the smartest and the strongest and the funniest and the fastest, and it's really boring because actually it's the times where you mess up, it's the things that you're not so great that are sometimes the most entertaining. Which is why we remember Gimli's fighting ability and his hardiness and toughness, but we also remember the time that Aragorn had to toss him across the gap and the time he fell from his horse. He's really good at some stuff, and he's really bad at some stuff, and that makes it interesting. Our next step is just to create a vague background. Don't get too detailed with this part, and I'll come to why later. We just need you to show up to the table with a good idea of what sort of background and upbringing your character had. Did they come from wealth or poverty? Were they well educated or not at all? Did they grow up in a happy, peaceful environment or the opposite? Now you can turn up with a 10-page backstory and name every single member of your family and exactly where they grew up and everyone's job titles and have a family tree from 500 years ago, but I would encourage you not to. Having a vague-ish backstory can actually be really helpful, especially if the DM wants to work your story into the grand campaign. And that's really it. That's all you need to do right now. What we'll do next is we will get our character sheet out and I'll walk you through how to fill this in. I promise you, it's not nearly as daunting as you think it is right now. There are two things that you need to avoid when you're first creating your character. The first is, unless you are starting at a high level, do not show up with an already powerful character. If your character's backstory is that they were some powerful mercenary or elite level fighter and you show up to play a session at level 1, you are going to be really frustrated when your character is pretty rubbish at most things. It's okay for them to be proficient, it's okay for them to have experience, just don't make them someone with godlike powers only to show up and that not be reflected in the game. That's a mistake I made as a DM initially when I didn't know that that would be an issue and I didn't tell my players about it. The second thing you need to avoid doing is falling into the trap of wanting to play an edgelord.
It's tempting to show up to the table with a character who is a bit of a gruff loner and doesn't need any friends and can handle himself and is out for revenge.
But this is a collaborative experience. You are going to be working as a team. And you wanting to play this loner character out for revenge might work well in a TV series or a film or a book where that person is the main character and only character, but that's not how D&D works. It takes a very experienced person to play a character like that and not have it piss off the rest of the players and not get to the point where nobody cares whether they show up or not, so just avoid it completely to start with. You're going to need to communicate with the other players. Your character is probably going to want to be involved and become friends to an extent with the other characters. Otherwise, it's going to set you up for a very lonely experience. The whole point of D&D in the first place is that we're trying to do this all together. Like I said, on the next video, we'll get the character sheet out and we'll go through all of this. I promise it's not as daunting as you think it is right now. And even if you're not creating a brand new character at this moment, this video could still be helpful if you're running out of ideas or running out of motivation because you're halfway through a campaign and you feel a bit disconnected with what you're meant to be doing next. The whole point of this channel is to help you become stronger in the gym and stronger with your tabletop hobbies. So if you have any questions or queries, if you've got anything you're not sure about, just drop in the comments below. Make sure you save this video and maybe share it with someone who you think it might help. I'll catch you on the next video.